Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I'm New Jersey's premier journalist and the sworn enemy of liberals, toxic progressives, social justice clowns, and woke fools all throughout the state of New Jersey, Fernando Uribe. Hope you all had a wonderful week. There is a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, there's a topic that came up during this week's gubernatorial debate between Governor Phil Murphy and his Republican challenger, Jack Ciattarelli, and that had to do with reproductive rights, more importantly, Planned Parenthood. And I'll tell you why all this hysteria really is all for nothing. Now, during this debate, the point came up about whether or not either candidate would defund Planned Parenthood or what they would do concerning reproductive rights. Now, folks, here's a news flash, especially for all the ladies out there and all these insufferable activist groups out there in the Garden State. Your reproductive rights are fine. Now, let's go back in history because it seems like a lot of you out there don't know your history. And of course, yes, it was, stipulated that during the 8 years of Governor Chris Christie, Planned Parenthood in New Jersey was defunded. Now, that's true, but let's also remember the reality that not one Planned Parenthood location in New Jersey closed down. So they still found the way to get funding and to, obviously have resources allocated to them, whether it was through private corporations, donors, whatever the case may be. Now, of course, they won't tell you that because they want to, stir everybody up into a frenzy that, New Jersey is going to become the next Texas. Folks, let me tell you something. As a devoted Dallas Cowboys fan, I love the great state of Texas. Now, whatever they choose to do on social and economic issues is their right. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these activist groups in New Jersey, like, again, the Political Action Committee that represents Planned Parenthood, or insufferable groups like Women for Progress, will bitch and moan to the sky about, our reproductive rights are under attack. Hands off our uterus. Folks, New Jersey is as blue a state as it comes. Across the river in New York is the same. All the way on the other side of the coast in California is the same. Now, whatever Texas wants to do, that's their business. See, there's something called federalism. See, I don't know if all you ladies out there in these activist groups or all you other leftists, maybe you failed high school history, but somewhere during that curriculum, you talked about the Constitution. And in there, under the 10th Amendment, there's something called federalism, which is the preservation of states' rights. Whatever Texas chooses to do is their business. You don't live there, so stop your bitching and moaning. Like, do you think people in Texas and in the great state of Florida are looking at New Jersey and saying, wow, man, they sure don't know how to budget in New Jersey. Wow, they sure do know how to pass, ridiculous spending bills. And they do know how to sort of, force down the throats of parents, ridiculous curriculum where they're learning about gender identity at the age of 5, for example. But no one in Texas and Florida is saying that. They don't care about New Jersey any more than we should care about them. Let them govern themselves how they want. Are you a woman living in Texas right now? No, of course not. Then stop your bitching and moaning. But this is the problem, folks, when it comes to these causes. For example, again, we look at Planned Parenthood. Now, listen, they have a lot of clinics that provide a plethora of services to women and, of course, to some men as well. And I understand that their need. But, folks, just like other nonprofit organizations, like the American Cancer Society, which I'm proud to volunteer with, and other organizations, they find a way to secure funding. They're not always procuring taxpayer dollars by the millions of dollars as well. But that's what Planned Parenthood does, not just in New Jersey, but nationally. So essentially, folks, they're taking taxpayer dollars, right, that are subsidized and, of course, using it for their own practices, whether, again, it's to maintain that their clinics stay functional or, even worse, to get highly political by backing candidates that back their political agenda. Now, I'm not a fan whatsoever of my tax dollars being used for this, but that is New Jersey. Okay? But then, of course, you have insufferable organizations like Women for Progress. Folks, if you've ever looked at their website, have you ever seen a more miserable group of do-nothing housewives? Okay? Look at their websites, whether they're having mimosa happy hours virtually on Zoom, or they're having their little ridiculous, marches for whatever. These are exactly, folks, are the insufferable and nauseating organizations in New Jersey that are just blowing up all this hype. Okay, it's these insufferable organizations, again, these do-nothing housewives. Folks, when you look at their social media, it almost makes you wonder, what's the hardest part of their day? Let me see. They're probably thinking, gee, should I have soy milk or almond milk with my super-duper mega cappuccino macchiato? Or I don't know, what's the other most difficult decision of the day? Oh, I don't know, which of my husband's credit cards to swipe while I'm sitting at home, engaging in book club reunions. Folks, these are the type of insufferable organizations. Again, these do-nothing housewives that go on social media and create all this hysteria. Okay, I don't know. What's another difficult part of their day? I don't know, maybe paying the landscaper? Oh, that's right. Instead of swiping their husband's credit cards, they actually have to use their hands and pay them with money. I mean, folks, this is the type of people we're dealing with here that are creating this hysteria, that are creating all of this madness about, oh, reproductive rights are under attack. No, they're not. Folks, this is as liberal a legislature as there is in the United States, okay? So the idea that, oh, New Jersey could become Texas, no, it's not. It's not going to be, listen, I'm going to tell you something. New Jersey's not going to become Texas any more than the Mets all of a sudden are going to become this successful franchise winning a plethora of World Series. That's not going to happen, and neither's the other. But this is the problem, again, with the left in this state when it comes to reproductive rights, all right? You need to stop with, again, and this is what makes these organizations, whether it's Planned Parenthood, and you check out their social media, they're just as insufferable, or organizations like Women for Progress, or Whiners for Progress, as I like to call them. They bitch to live, and they live to bitch. I don't know about you. I'm tired of it. But you know what? These are the groups that unfortunately have the ears of legislators all throughout New Jersey. And that's what they're trying to do by whipping everybody up into hysteria in an election year about, oh, my uterus is under attack. No, it's not. Reproductive rights are fine in New Jersey. They're not going anywhere. Planned Parenthood gets as many millions of dollars in this state as they do of any chapter in the country. So stop your bitching and moaning. It's not really, it's not really becoming of a lot of you. And at the same time, it kind of reminds everybody that you don't know your history. And of course, you're always full of hypocrisy. And unfortunately, that seems to be permeating a lot on the left here in the great state of New Jersey. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. On this week's edition of the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every week via www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson, was my regularly scheduled monthly guest, the distinguished chairwoman of the Hudson County Democratic Organization, Amy DeGise. Now, we spoke for over an hour on a plethora of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we talked about the upcoming debate between her and the other 6 candidates that are running for at-large seats in the City Council in Jersey City coming up on November the 2nd. A special programming note, the Hudson Media Group will be hosting that debate on Thursday, October the 14th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and it will be hosted by yours truly. We talked about the debate format and what we should expect from Amy DeGise as she faces the other challengers coming up on Thursday, October the 14th.
Coming up on Thursday, October the 14th, it seems that with, 7 candidates, there's only one man that can maintain law and order in what will be a very lively and very, what I would argue, very interesting debate between the at-large council candidates. Folks, you got to rely on yours truly to be that special guest referee. It almost feels like WrestleMania season when you need a referee like me to moderate this debate coming up on Thursday, October the 14th at 6 p.m. live via the Hudson Media Group. Amy, you and 6 others are going to go at it. And how you feeling? It's a couple weeks away.
Feeling good. One thing I know that I could do well is talk. I'm never shy about speaking, especially about things that I'm passionate about and things that I want to do. So I am really excited. And, seeing how they've been coordinated so far, I know that the questions are really interesting. It's being played fair and nice. Nobody has gotten ugly or dirty. So I think it'll be exciting to, hear everyone's platform points and to have that discussion. And I know that, between you and Pat O'Melia and the Hudson Media Group, everybody is so reputable, so people are really excited to watch them. And they're, listening because they understand that these questions are what, the masses want to hear being asked. So they put us on the spot. They're tough questions, but they're not unfair at all. So I'm excited. I'm trying to get some of my platforms together, organize my thoughts so I don't go on a tangent and speak too much.
Secondly, we talked about what differentiates Amy from her opponents in the field. Now, without question, ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 incumbents in this race, along with Amy, who happens to be running on Mayor Stephen Phillips' ticket, and she's looking to snatch one of those at-large seats coming up on Election Day. We talked about her record and, more importantly, how she wants to be different than everybody else in the field should she win coming up on Election Day.
I mean, obviously, Amy, you're campaigning not just for your own seat on the city council, but you're obviously helping, the Democratic candidates at the county level and legislative races. You're obviously representing Hudson County at the state level, campaigning for Governor Murphy. But keeping it local here, obviously, you're on the mayor's ticket. We know what the mayor stands for. We know what the mayor is running on. We know that people on his ticket obviously are running with the mayor based on these ideas. And obviously you're very busy. You're not going to be sitting at home scrolling through your phone and looking at every single social media post by your opponents. But the reality is that some of these independent candidates are taking the mayor to task and the ticket to task about maybe not being independent enough or not holding the mayor more accountable. Is that a legitimate talking point by some of these opponents on the ballot that are going for at-large seats, or is it just, well, they have to say something to stand out, or is it somewhere in the middle?
No, I think that it's a really easy argument for them to use. It's the easiest. It's the lowest hanging fruit because they're aligned with leadership that they must be some sort of puppets. But I think that's incredibly insulting because each of the council right now, all of them, they've stood on their own time and time again. They've introduced their own ordinances. They've had to, whip together votes to support initiatives that they find passionate. They work with the mayor and they work with them well. That doesn't mean that, everyone is going home and, they would never vote against each other. It means that they vote their conscience. And I think as the mayor, he likes that these people have their own ideas. He does not want to carry the water for 9 people and do all of the work. He needs us. He needs us to be boots on the ground, to think about community concerns and how to solve problems creatively. And he likes, when we have our own ideas and initiatives. And when he doesn't agree, I know that he takes a lot of time to discuss them. They may not always fall on the same side, but I've never heard anyone saying like, oh, wow, like I'm really scared to vote against something that the mayor wants, or I have to do this. So they are independent thinkers who do align themselves with the mayor because they have common interests, they have common goals, and because they've spent the time together to have those discussions to say, hey, how can we be on the same page? You're viewing it from this perspective. I'm viewing it from mine. Before, this turns into something that, goes to the media or goes into a really long meeting, how do we find the middle ground? And that's what is important. And that's why someone like myself, and I think Jake, who, has, opposed the mayor on some issues at times, and also Councilman Boggiano. Him and the mayor haven't agreed on everything, and a lot of that was done quite publicly. But, he chose to join the mayor's team, and the mayor chose to, have him on his team because they know that they're working for the same goals. They may have different strategies, but they're able to talk and network with each other. And I think that's, a campaign platform point that we've all been using on the trail is that, you have to be able to work with everyone. You can't isolate people that you don't like. You can't isolate people who think differently than you or of a different background or party. That's discrimination. So we are all independent thinkers and independent candidates who, have some, things in common that make us a team. But for the other side to say that they're the slate of independents, but yet they're all kind of joining each other, it's really hard to be out there on your own island, and you won't get anything accomplished because who are you going to sit down with and negotiate terms with? Who you're going to sit down with and, actually solve problems? I really can't stand, when people say, right now you have Rolando and James as the only no votes on there. Well, okay, they're voting no, but what else are they proposing? What other solutions? They'd like to vote down everything, but they're not proposing any solutions either. So voting no, that's a really easy way out of something to say, oh, look at me, I'm standing up for you, I voted no again. But when you don't have anything to replace that no, you don't have another way to solve it, you're not doing your job as a legislator.
As always, it's a very interesting episode whenever Amy DeGise comes by. And once again, you can listen to the episode in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkinthehudson. You can download the episode and listen to it anywhere at any time from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And these are exclusives I'll continue to bring you every single week on Blog Talk Radio. Here are some local stories for your consideration. Let's start off with the recent City Council debate in Ward C, which was hosted right here by the Hudson Media Group. And once again, a special thank you to John Hines with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, Kevin Bing, one of the independent candidates running in Ward C, went to town on incumbent Richard Boggiano during the most recent debate. So what makes the story interesting, though, is that Kevin Bing is going on the offensive against the councilman over a $500 donation to a Republican pro-Donald Trump U.S. Senate candidate who the incumbent defended and said was his cousin. So again, let me just give you some details here to make you understand why the story is significant. Now, Bing took aim at Boggiano for a $500 contribution to James DiMartino, who lost in the Delaware Republican U.S. Senate primary by a margin of 57 to 43. Quote, thanks to President Trump's leadership, we have obliterated the ISIS fiasco and kept the nuclear threat of Iran at bay. That's, again, a comment made by DiMartino on his campaign website last year. Quote, now Jim recognizes the existential domestic threat of radical democratic socialists, and President Trump needs reinforcements. It's time to send in the Marine, which that's who he was. Now, between this and Boggiano abstaining on a city council resolution denouncing the resurrection, which I'll get to that in a moment, why it wasn't one, at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, Bing said he would have asked his opponent if he regretted being sympathetic towards Trump and his supporters at last night's debate. Now, folks, one of the things that is really, really interesting about this is that this is where Kevin Bing is going wrong in his campaign. Folks, this is a local city council debate, all right? And I get it that Kevin Bing is trying to be one of those independents, or he's one of these, democratic socialists or these progressives. Folks, these national politics and these type of issues, they don't matter at the local level. A lot of people just care about, making sure that the garbage gets picked up, making sure that during the wintertime that snow gets shoveled and plowed accordingly, that intersections and pedestrian crosswalks aren't, covered in ice, that running water is, again, continuing in the city, whether or not our schools are being funded. Folks, that is what local candidates care about. That's what Jersey City candidates care about. The idea that Kevin Bing wants to go on some sort of tirade or tantrum about whether or not Richard Boggiano is, showing poor judgment by not denouncing what happened on January 6th. Folks, let me tell you something. I'm so sick and tired of people on the left bitching and moaning about January 6th, okay? When you bitch and moan as much about what happened last summer when Black Lives Matter, protesters and Antifa protesters burned down cities and looted and rioted and caused millions of dollars in property damage to both public and private buildings, that's when conservatives like me will give a you-know-what about January 6th, okay? But in the meantime, there hasn't been one arrest. There hasn't been one prosecution from anybody who, again, was down with BLM last summer. And you know what? When I start seeing some punitive action against these derelicts, that's when I'll start caring about January 6th. Because people weren't, while they were destroying parts of the Capitol building, guess what? They weren't walking around with weapons. They weren't throwing Molotov cocktails at police cars. But you know who were? A lot of black and brown people last summer during BLM protests in New York City, in Philadelphia, in Cleveland, in St. Louis, in Minneapolis, in Detroit, in Oakland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, all of these awful dumps of blue cities, this is where you saw that. So Kevin, when you want me to worry about January 6th, do me a favor, be just as outraged, because I looked at your social media. I didn't see one bit of outrage last summer when this was happening at the hands of BLM protesters. So do me a favor, check yourself, bro, because people in Jersey City care more about what's going on locally than you trying to make an example of the councilman and whether or not he abstained from a resolution. Folks, that's the last thing on anybody's mind in Jersey City. They care about how the schools are getting funded, whether or not crime is going to get reduced, because I don't know about you, you've been to the south side of Jersey City? It's a war zone. And while people want to talk about defunding the police and everything else, which, folks, I believe in police reform and revising police practices. There's no question about that. But folks, nobody ever wants to talk about the incessant amount of black-on-black crime on the south side of Jersey City. It's all about, it's about this progressive cause or this leftist issue. Folks, you got to look in the mirror down there on the south side of Jersey City. But let me get back to Kevin Bing for a moment. Folks, this is where progressives go wrong. They foam at the mouth and they have a party in their pants about, national issues, or we need to be green, or we need to be, progressives. Folks, at the end of the day, people care about the meat and potato issues that Richard Boggiano stands for. And as a matter of fact, also Tom Zuppa stands for. You don't see Tom Zuppa engaging in this sort of madness. But again, this is why Kevin Bing will end up losing on November 2nd. Let's move to Kearney, and now we talk about the Hudson County Jail, and a special thank you to Ron Zetlinger with the Jersey Journal for his report on this story. Now, it's been reported this week that Hudson County will take inmates from the Union County Jail in Elizabeth in need of substance abuse and reentry services under a new 5-year deal that is expected to bring in more than $3 million annually to Hudson County. Now, the deal was agreed upon this past week, and it softens the financial blow of ending the contract with the Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, as we all know, to house illegals at the jail in Kearney. Earlier this month, county officials announced the jail will no longer house ICE detainees as of November the 1st. So, once again, a few more details here. Quote, "We are pleased to enter this agreement with Union County." Again, this is a statement by Hudson County Executive Tom DeGise. He also went on to say our Corrections and Rehabilitation Center will provide state-leading, innovative substance abuse treatment and community reintegration services for those entrusted to us by Union County. This is for the future of HCCC and R, one focused on offering a progressive treatment and reintegration-based approach to reducing recidivism throughout the region. Now, the deal calls for Union County to pay $104 per day for each inmate for the first 2 years, $105 per day for years 3 and 4, and $106 in the 5th year. Hudson County spokesman Jim Kennelly estimated that Hudson County would house approximately 80 inmates per year and earn slightly more than $3 million per that same year. Now, the contract will go into effect coming up on October the 1st. Now, the PAC says that Union County must pay Hudson County for at least 40 inmates per day, and even if there are less at the jail. It also says that the agreement may be terminated without cause any time upon 30 days prior written notice by either party. Now, the Union County inmates being transferred are currently being housed at the Delaney facility in Essex County under an agreement between Union and Essex counties to move all inmates eventually out to Hudson County Jail in Kearney. A grant from the New Jersey Department of Corrections will also cover the cost of the program. Folks, this is a great news to hear. And of course, very innovative by Hudson County Executive Tom DeGise, who I'm very sorry to hear that he caved to all these progressive idiots and all these woke fools that are having tantrums about ICE contracts. About the fact, well, you know what, let's not house people. Let's not make sure that, let's just release everybody who's under ICE detainer. Because we don't believe in borders. Folks, this is the problem with the left. Again, somewhere along the way, whether it was high school, whether they failed high school history, or whether they took U.S. history in college, wherever they went, if they went at all, is guess what? Somewhere in that class, you learn about the Constitution. And in that glorious sacred document, there is an insistence and a responsibility by the federal government to ensure sovereignty. Sovereignty, you know what that means? I know it's a long-ass word for a lot of you, but it's about preserving borders and making sure that as a country, we believe in them. But you know what? You ask anybody on the left and progressives, no, what the hell? You know what? Oh, who cares about borders? Who cares about budgets? It's like they're oblivious about economics. They're oblivious about science, like biology, right? And now they're oblivious about U.S. history. Folks, it's about preserving borders. And for whatever reason, it's unfortunate. And I know Tom DeGise is a good guy. But unfortunately, he caved to all these local idiots like Hector Segura and Amy Torres with the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice and all these other insufferable progressive groups that once again are all thinking about, my heart's in the right place. No, your head's up your ass when it comes to the fact that we need to support agencies like ICE who are enforcing immigration law. But when it comes to this deal in Hudson County, I'm glad to hear it. We need that revenue because guess what? Without that revenue, you know what commissioners are going to be doing at the county level? They'll raise taxes. And then these same idiots on the left and all these progressives are saying, well, why are my taxes going up? Why is this more expensive? You fools, it's because the county needs money. And what are they going to do when they need money? They're not going to slash their budgets. They're going to raise taxes. Again, another example and a reminder why all of you failed Basic Economics 101. But good job at Hudson County by getting this revenue source, and hopefully it's something they'll continue for years to come. Let's move south to the peninsula city of Bayonne. A special thank you to the Dean of Hudson County Journalism, Al Sullivan, for his report on this story with Tap Into Bayonne. Now, apparently there's some Bayonne turbine problems, and great title, The Answer is Indeed Blowing in the Wind. Now, problems with Bayonne's infamous wind turbine came to a head at the September 22nd Bayonne Council meeting when Council President Sharon Ash Nadrowski questioned why now former Director of Municipal Services Tim Boyle was negotiating with potential turbine companies without prior council approval. Now, Boyle, who acknowledged that some of the $66,000 authorized to obtain legal counsel to explore options for the city's water contract with Suez was being used to deal with questions involving the turbine, said that negotiating was the wrong word and that he started in a local newspaper had indeed misinterpreted what was being done. Now, the turbine, which was supposed to help cover the power needs for operating the city's sewage plant, has been problematic from the day it was installed nearly a decade ago. Installed at the Oak Street sewage plant, the towering 262-foot-tall, 70-ton building, White Turbine, as a matter of fact, has a power of 1.5 megawatts. The blades are 252 feet in diameter, and the wind turbine was manufactured by an Austrian company. And of course, the wind turbine is the first of its kind in the New York, New Jersey, Northern New Jersey metropolitan area. Oh my God, what a surprise. A green project doesn't work. Oh my God, color me, surprised. Folks, again, this is what we're talking about when it comes to people on the left and all these progressives that have a way to influence policy. Folks, green energy doesn't work any more than the New York Giants defense. Okay, that's the bottom line. Okay, because let me tell you something. For everybody that orders Amazon and orders all of your products, guess how things are being transported by interstate commerce or by plane? They're all being fueled by petroleum. They're all being fueled by oil. Because guess what? These are what these devices work on. Now, should we try to pursue some sort of energy alternatives? Yeah, we should, but guess what? They're not working. Okay? We're not going to be flying planes on wind and electricity. We're not going to be moving trucks across state lines to move commerce on electricity or wind either. Folks, these are the vehicles that operate on petroleum. By the way, petroleum doesn't just fill up our gas tanks. They provide the production of multiple items that we use on a daily basis. But don't tell that to people on the left because they're so obsessed with green. The problem is it costs a lot of green in our pocket. Lastly, October's right around the corner, and that means it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. As you all know, I'm obviously a very dedicated philanthropist, and since 2008, I've been volunteering for the American Cancer Society, and more specifically, making strides against breast cancer. I've been able to raise $52,853 during this campaign. And of course, we couldn't do it last year because of COVID, but this year, on Friday night, October the 8th, at the famous Mama Juana Cafe by the river in West New York, right along River Road, I'll be hosting the 13th edition of A Professor's Quest to Safe Breasts. Along with my amazing co-host there, as you can see on the flyer. Folks, check out the event page on Facebook. And of course, if you can donate online, you can see the page there as well. Folks, all proceeds that evening and during the online fundraiser will benefit the American Cancer Society. So come out for a good cause on Friday night, October the 8th, along with partnering with the Union City Local PBA number 8. We'll do our part to defeat breast cancer once and for all. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, please check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, along with www.livestream.com/hmgtv, and their YouTube page. Don't forget to check out the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, every single week via www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson. I'll continue bringing those exclusives that nobody else is doing in local media. Always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always talking politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier journalist and the sworn enemy of all the liberals, toxic progressives, social justice clowns, and woke fools throughout Hudson County and the state of New Jersey, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, happy October to everybody, and thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.